The wind on Kepler-7 could freeze a man's lungs in 30 seconds. Marcus Webb knew this because he had timed it once, back when he still cared about stupid things like that. Now he just worked fast and kept his helmet sealed. The refueling station sat alone on the ice moon like a rusted metal box someone had forgotten. Most ships didn't even stop here anymore. They went to the newer stations, the ones with better fuel and people who smiled. Marcus didn't smile much. He didn't see the point when you lived alone on a frozen rock at the edge of nowhere. He was outside fixing a broken fuel pump when he saw the crash. A bright streak of fire cut across the gray sky, and something big slammed into the ice field about 2 miles away. The impact shook the ground under his boots. Marcus stood there for a moment watching the smoke rise. It wasn't his problem. Probably some smuggler who flew too fast or a mining ship that cut corners on maintenance. Either way, they were dead now. The cold would see to that. He went back to work on the pump. His hands moved automatically, twisting bolts and replacing burned-out wires. He had fixed this same pump 17 times in 3 years. The station was old and everything broke constantly. But 30 minutes later, he was still thinking about that crash. His scanner showed a faint power signature out there. Something was still running, which meant the ship's core hadn't exploded, which meant someone might still be alive. Marcus cursed under his breath. He wasn't a hero. He was a mechanic who wanted to be left alone. But he also couldn't stop thinking about someone freezing to death while he stood here doing nothing. He grabbed his emergency kit and fired up the old hover sled. The thing wheezed like a sick animal, but it moved. Marcus guided it across the ice field following the smoke trail. The wind tried to push him sideways, and the cold crept through every seal in his suit. The crashed ship was half buried in the ice. It was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The hull was smooth and dark, made from some material that seemed to drink in light. Strange symbols covered the surface, glowing faintly purple even though the ship was clearly dying. Marcus found the airlock smashed open. He climbed inside, his helmet light cutting through the darkness. The ship's interior was a mess of twisted metal and sparking wires. Everything was too big, built for someone much larger than a human. Then he found the creature. It lay in what looked like a cockpit, though Marcus couldn't be sure. The thing was huge, easily 12 feet long from snout to tail. It looked like the pictures of dragons from old Earth stories, but this was real. Scales covered its body, but they were pure white like fresh snow. Its wings were folded against its sides, torn and bleeding. Its breathing was shallow and wrong. The creature's eyes opened. They were pale gold, almost white, and filled with pain and rage. It tried to move, tried to attack him, but it was too weak. A sound came from its throat like rocks grinding together. Marcus should have run. This was clearly an alien and probably a dangerous one. But he saw the way its body shivered. He saw the blood freezing on its wounds. He saw the radiation burns along its scales where the ship's core had been leaking. Easy, Marcus said, knowing it couldn't understand him. Easy now. He couldn't move the creature, not all of it. But his hover sled had a cargo platform. Working carefully, Marcus rigged up a pulling system using the ship's own cables. It took 3 hours to drag the creature out of the wreck and onto the sled. 3 hours where Marcus worried it would die or wake up and kill him. The trip back to the station was a nightmare. The creature was too heavy and the sled kept getting stuck. Marcus had to stop twice to adjust the weight distribution, all while the wind screamed and the creature's breathing got weaker. Getting it inside the station was even worse. Marcus had to open the cargo bay door and use every tool he owned to slide the creature through. By the time he was done, his muscles were screaming and his suit was beeping warnings about oxygen levels. But the creature was inside. That was something. Marcus looked at it lying there on his cargo bay floor. He had no medical training. He was a mechanic. He fixed machines, not living things. But bodies were just complicated machines, right? Blood pumps, oxygen flow, electrical signals. It was all systems. He started with the basics. The cargo bay was too cold, so he turned up the heat as high as it would go. The creature was bleeding, so he used his welding foam to seal the worst wounds. It wasn't proper medical treatment, but it stopped the bleeding. The radiation burns were trickier, but Marcus had anti-radiation meds in his emergency kit. He crushed them up and mixed them with water, then used a fuel injector to push the mixture into the creature's bloodstream. The creature didn't wake up. It just kept breathing those shallow, rasping breaths. Marcus worked through the night. He built a better heating system around the creature using spare parts from the station. He synthesized more medicine using his chemical processor, normally used for making fuel additives. He monitored the creature's vital signs using his cargo scanner, trying to make sense of alien biology. Days passed, then weeks. The creature, which Marcus started calling Scaly in his head because he had to call it something, slowly started to improve. The wounds closed. The breathing got stronger. Marcus learned what it would eat by trial and error. It seemed to like the protein paste he used for emergency rations mixed with mineral supplements. One morning, Marcus walked into the cargo bay and found Scaly awake. The pale gold eyes watched him with cold intelligence. The creature's head lifted slightly. Marcus froze. This was the moment where it either killed him or didn't. The creature made a sound, low and rumbling. Then it laid its head back down, not attacking. Not yet, anyway. "Yeah, you're welcome," Marcus muttered and went to make more protein paste. Over the following weeks, something strange happened. Scaly started watching Marcus work. When Marcus fixed things in the cargo bay, those gold eyes followed every movement. When Marcus brought food, Scaly would eat from his hand instead of waiting for him to leave. Marcus talked while he worked. He always had, even before Scaly. Talking to himself kept him company. Now he talked to the creature about fuel pumps and broken generators and how the station was falling apart faster than he could fix it. Scaly listened. Marcus didn't know if the creature understood, but it seemed to pay attention. 3 months after the crash, Marcus walked into the cargo bay and found Scaly standing. The creature was fully healed, its white scales gleaming in the light. It was magnificent and terrifying at the same time. Scaly looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then it did something Marcus never expected. It lowered its head slightly like a nod, a gesture of respect maybe, or acknowledgement. Then it walked to the cargo bay door. Marcus, his heart pounding, opened it. Scaly stepped out into the ice field. Marcus had repaired its ship enough to fly. He didn't know why he'd done that. Maybe because keeping a creature locked up seemed wrong. The white dragon walked to its ship. At the airlock, it turned back one last time. It looked at Marcus, and Marcus could have sworn he saw something like gratitude in those alien eyes. Then it was gone. The ship lifted into the gray sky and disappeared. Marcus stood there in the cold for a while. Then he went back inside to fix the fuel pump that had broken again. He was alone once more. Just like always, he told himself he didn't mind. 15 years changed everything and nothing at all. Marcus Webb was 52 now, with more gray in his beard than brown. His hands had new scars and his back complained when he bent over engine compartments. But he still fixed things and he was still good at it. The refueling station on Kepler 7 was history. The company finally shut it down 8 years ago and Marcus didn't argue. He'd had enough of freezing moons and loneliness. He took his savings and moved to New Avalon, a decent human colony in the middle of civilized space. His repair shop sat on the edge of the spaceport. It wasn't fancy. The sign just said Webb's Repairs in plain letters. Inside, the shop smelled like oil and hot metal and the coffee that was always burning in the pot. Marcus liked it that way. He was under a freighter, replacing a cracked coolant line when he heard boots on the concrete floor. "You Webb?" a woman's voice called. "Depends who's asking," Marcus said. "Not coming out, Captain." "Sarah Chen. I've got a star drive that's making a noise it shouldn't. They all make noises they shouldn't. Question is whether it'll kill you or just annoy you." Marcus slid out from under the freighter and stood up, wiping his hands. The captain was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes that said she'd been flying too long without proper maintenance. "Let me hear it," Marcus said. An hour later, he'd found the problem. A stabilizer coil was cracked, probably from pushing the drive too hard. It would cost 800 credits to fix. "I've only got 500, Captain Chen said quietly. Marcus looked at her. He'd heard that tone before. It was the sound of someone who needed to keep flying to eat but couldn't afford to fix what kept them flying. 500 covers it, Marcus said. "But you said," "I said 800 for the part. Labor's free for people who don't waste my time arguing." Captain Chen's eyes got wet, but she blinked it away fast. "Thank you." Marcus just grunted and went to find the part. He'd done the math in his head already. He could eat the loss this month. The freighter captain couldn't. This was who Marcus had become. Still alone, mostly, still gruff and quiet. But New Avalon had people, and people had problems, and Marcus was good at fixing problems. Somewhere along the way, he'd built a reputation. The spacers called him Fair Webb because he charged what was fair, not what he could get away with. Young mechanics came to learn from him because he actually taught them instead of guarding his knowledge. Ship captains trusted him because he never lied about what needed fixing and what could wait. Marcus didn't think of himself as special. He just did his job and helped when he could, same as he'd always done. Sometimes, late at night when the shop was closed, Marcus thought about the white dragon, Scaly, the creature he'd saved on Kepler 7. He wondered if it was still alive. He wondered if it ever thought about the human who'd pulled it from a frozen wreck. Probably not. It had been 15 years. The creature was probably some important alien somewhere, living its life, having forgotten all about a lonely mechanic on an ice moon. That was fine. Marcus didn't save it for gratitude. He saved it because it needed saving. The galaxy had changed in 15 years. Humanity was still considered a young species, barely 200 years into space exploration. But humans were making a name for themselves. They were good negotiators, good traders, good at adapting to new situations and making friends with almost anyone. Marcus saw it in his shop. He got customers from a dozen different species now. The insectoid Thravians who needed their atmosphere processors adjusted. The aquatic Selene who required special seals on their water ships. The rock-like Grath whose vessels ran on completely different principles than human ships. Marcus fixed them all. A problem was a problem no matter who had it. One evening, Marcus was closing up shop when his communication terminal beeped. A message had come in on the long-range channel, the one that received transmissions from outside the system. He pulled it up on the screen. It was gibberish, just random symbols and sounds that his translator couldn't process. Probably spam from some automated probe or maybe a glitched transmission from a passing ship. Marcus deleted it and went home. He lived in a small apartment above a noodle shop. It smelled like ginger and soy sauce all the time, which Marcus liked. He'd heat up some instant food, read the news on his tablet, and fall asleep watching old Earth movies. It was a simple life. A quiet life. Marcus was content with it, but the galaxy wasn't quiet. Over the next few weeks, Marcus started hearing rumors. Strange ships had been spotted at the edge of human space. Big ships, military grade, from a species most humans had never seen up close. The news feeds called them the Drachnir. They were an old species, powerful, with an empire that controlled dozens of systems. They'd made contact with humanity about 7 years ago, but it had been brief and formal. The Drachnir kept to themselves, and they seemed to think humans were beneath their notice. Now their ships were prowling the borders of human territory, and nobody knew why. Politicians on Earth were nervous. Colonial governors were calling for defense fleets. The news feed showed worried experts discussing whether this was a prelude to invasion. Marcus didn't pay much attention. He wasn't a politician or a soldier. He fixed ships. Whatever the Drachnir were doing, it wasn't his problem. One afternoon, a young mechanic named Tommy came into the shop looking excited. "Did you see the news?" Tommy asked. "There's like 20 Drachnir warships just sitting at the edge of the system, just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Marcus asked, focused on the engine part he was calibrating. "Nobody knows. It's freaking everyone out," Marcus shrugged. "Probably military exercises or some political thing. Governments do stupid stuff all the time." But even Marcus had to admit it was strange. New Avalon was an average colony, nothing special. Why would an alien empire park a fleet nearby? That night, Marcus got another one of those garbled messages. Same as before, symbols and sounds his translator couldn't read. He deleted it again, but this time he felt a small prickle of unease. 2 days later, everything changed. Marcus was working on a cargo hauler's landing gear when the sirens started. Not the warning sirens for bad weather or system malfunctions. These were the emergency sirens, the ones that meant something really bad was happening. His shop's communication terminal exploded with alerts. Every screen in the spaceport showed the same thing. The Drachnir fleet had entered New Avalon's orbit. Not slowly, not cautiously. They'd just appeared, dozens of massive warships surrounding the planet. Marcus stepped outside. The sky was full of ships. Huge vessels that looked like they were built to destroy entire worlds. The colonial defense forces were scrambling, but their small fighters looked like toys next to the alien warships. People were running, screaming. Some were trying to evacuate. Others were frozen in fear. Marcus just stood there looking up at the ships. His mechanic's brain automatically cataloged what he saw. Advanced hull design. Energy signatures that suggested power cores beyond human technology. Weapons that could probably crack the planet open if they wanted. Then his communication terminal beeped with an official colonial government message. It was marked urgent and directed personally to him. Marcus opened it. The message was short. Marcus Webb. Report to Colonial Administration immediately. The Dreknir have asked for you by name. Marcus read it twice, then 3 times. That didn't make sense. Why would an alien empire he'd never heard of know his name? Why would they bring a war fleet to find one mechanic? His hands were shaking slightly as he locked up his shop. People stared at him as he walked toward the administration building, like they knew he was connected to whatever was happening. Marcus didn't understand any of it. But as he walked under the shadow of alien warships, a thought struck him. A memory from 15 years ago of pale white scales and gold eyes. No, it couldn't be. Could it? The Colonial Administration building was chaos. People were running everywhere, shouting orders, trying to organize evacuations that probably wouldn't matter if the aliens decided to attack. Marcus pushed through the crowd until guards stopped him at the main office. Marcus Webb, he said. You sent for me. The guards looked at him like he was a bomb about to explode. They practically dragged him to the governor's office. Governor Patricia Okafor sat behind her desk, but she wasn't sitting calmly. She stood the moment Marcus entered. Her face was pale and her hands gripped the edge of her desk. What did you do? She asked. Ma'am? The Dreknir, 23 warships. They entered our orbit 30 minutes ago and broadcasted one message. They want to speak with Marcus Webb, so I'll ask again. What did you do? Marcus felt like the floor had disappeared under his feet. I don't know. You don't know? An alien empire brings enough firepower to destroy this entire colony, and they're asking for you specifically, and you don't know why? Wait, Marcus said, his mind spinning. 15 years ago I was working on Kepler 7. There was a crash. I found an injured alien and helped it. It looked like a dragon, white scales. The governor stared at him. You're telling me you made first contact with the Dreknir 15 years ago? Our official records say first contact was 7 years ago. I didn't know what it was. It was dying. I helped it, then it left. You just helped it, the governor repeated, her voice flat. Do you have any idea what the Dreknir are? They're one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Their empire has existed for over 3,000 years. They have technology that makes ours look like stone tools, and they don't talk to species they consider inferior, which is basically everyone. I didn't know that, Marcus said. It needed help. Before the governor could respond, a communications officer burst into the room. Ma'am, they're broadcasting again. They're demanding Marcus Webb be brought to landing platform 7. They're sending a shuttle down. Tell them we need more time, Governor Okafor said. They said they will wait 1 hour. After that. The officer swallowed. They didn't finish the sentence, ma'am. The governor looked at Marcus. I'm sorry, I don't have a choice. You have to go meet them. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood on landing platform 7, surrounded by colonial marines with weapons they probably couldn't even scratch alien hulls with. The platform had been cleared. Everyone else was in shelters or trying to evacuate the city. Marcus wore his work clothes because nobody had time to find him anything else. He still had grease under his fingernails. He probably smelled like engine oil. The alien shuttle descended from the sky. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Smooth black hull, no visible seams, moving with a grace that human ships couldn't match. It landed without a sound. The airlock opened. Steam or smoke poured out. Probably just the temperature difference, but it looked dramatic. Marcus's heart pounded. His mouth was dry. Then the figure emerged. It walked on 4 legs but held its upper body upright, almost like a centaur from old myths. But this was no horse. It was a dragon, covered in white scales that gleamed like pearls. Massive wings folded against its back. A long tail moved behind it with careful precision. Its head was noble and terrible, with horns that curved backward and eyes that burned with pale gold fire. It wore armor. Not full body armor, but pieces that suggested rank and importance. Purple and silver metal that probably cost more than Marcus's entire shop. Gems that glowed with inner light were set into the armor. Behind the white dragon came others. 6 more Draknir, all of them larger than the first, all of them wearing different armor. These ones carried weapons that hummed with energy. The white dragon walked forward. Each step was precise, controlled, radiating power and authority. The Marines around Marcus shifted nervously, but held their ground. The dragon stopped 10 feet from Marcus. It looked down at him. Marcus was not a small man, but this creature made him feel tiny. Then the dragon spoke. The voice was deep and resonant, like rocks grinding in an avalanche. But the translator in Marcus's ear turned it into English. Marcus Webb. "That's me," Marcus said. His voice didn't shake, which surprised him. "You do not recognize me." Marcus looked at the dragon's face, the pale gold eyes, the white scales, perfect and unmarked now, but the same color as the bloody, broken creature he'd pulled from a frozen wreck. "Scaly?" Marcus whispered. One of the other dragons made a sound like a growl. The white dragon raised one clawed hand slightly, and the sound stopped. "You called me that," the white dragon said. "In your language, a simple name for a simple time. My true name is Scarith Forthalan, Crown Prince of the Draknir Empire, first son of the Eternal Throne, commander of the Starwing Fleet, and heir to the 3 sons." Marcus blinked. "That's a lot of titles. You saved my life, Marcus Webb. You were dying. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Scarith said, and there was weight in that word. "No one else would have done what you did. I was of the royal bloodline. I was the heir to an empire, and I was dying on a frozen moon. In the territory of a species my people barely acknowledged existed. Anyone else would have taken my ship's technology, would have tried to ransom me, would have let me die rather than risk the trouble of helping me. It was the right thing to do," Marcus said. "The right thing," Scarith repeated. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. "In my culture there is a concept called Corthana, a life debt to one who asks nothing in return. It is sacred. It is absolute. It can only be fulfilled by the debtor, and it passes through generations if necessary." "I don't want anything," Marcus said. "I know. That is why the debt exists." Scarith turned to the assembled Marines, and the cameras that Marcus now noticed were recording everything. "Hear me," Scarith said, his voice carrying across the platform. 15 years ago, this human saved my life when I was broken and dying. He asked for nothing. He expected nothing. He did it simply because it was, in his words, the right thing to do. In my empire, Albino Draknir are always of royal blood. Marcus Webb saved not just a life, but preserved the continuity of the imperial line. One of the other dragons stepped forward. This one was larger, with dark green scales. It spoke, and the translator made its voice female. "My prince, this display is beneath you. This human is just—" "Careful, General Thane," Scarith said quietly. "You are about to insult the one being in this galaxy who holds Corthana with the future emperor." The general dragon's mouth snapped shut. Scarith looked back at Marcus. "I have come to fulfill my debt. Name what you wish. Wealth? We have treasuries that could buy 100 worlds. Power? I can make you a noble of the empire with lands and titles. Technology? Our knowledge can advance your species by centuries. Name it, Marcus Webb, and it is yours." Marcus stood there. Every camera in the system was probably pointed at him right now. Every human in the colony was watching. The governor was probably having a heart attack. "I don't want anything," Marcus said again. "You must want something." Marcus thought about his shop, his apartment above the noodle place, the captains who came to him with broken ships and empty pockets, Tommy learning to calibrate plasma injectors, his simple, quiet life. "I'm happy with what I have," Marcus said. "You don't owe me anything. You're alive. That's enough." The platform was completely silent. Even the wind seemed to have stopped. Scarith lowered his head, bringing his massive face close to Marcus. The pale gold eyes stared into Marcus's brown ones. "You truly mean that?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "I do. You are either the wisest being I have ever met, or the most foolish. Probably foolish." Marcus admitted. But I'm okay with that. Scareth made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then I will tell you why I have really come, Marcus Webb. Not just for my debt, but because I need your help. And through you, I need humanity's help. There is a threat coming, something that my empire, even with all its power and technology, cannot stop alone. I learned something from you 15 years ago. I learned that sometimes the strong need the help of those they consider weak. I learned that wisdom and compassion are worth more than power. Marcus felt that familiar sinking feeling. What kind of threat? The kind that ends civilizations, Scareth said. And we need a mechanic who knows how to fix impossible problems. They moved the meeting to the governor's conference room because Scareth said having a real conversation on a landing platform was undignified. Marcus found himself sitting at a table with the governor, 3 military officials, 2 alien dragons, and a screen showing important-looking people from Earth who had connected in a panic. Scareth had folded his wings and settled onto a specially reinforced platform that the Marines had rushed to build. He looked almost relaxed, but Marcus could see the tension in the way his tail moved slightly. "Show them," Scareth said to one of his officers. The dragon touched a device on its armor, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed space, stars, and something else, something dark that seemed to eat the light around it. "This is the Void Swarm," Scareth said. "That is what your scientists call it. We call it Kalthora, which means the hunger that ends all things." The hologram zoomed in. The dark area wasn't empty. It was full of things, countless things, moving like a cloud of insects. Each one was small, maybe the size of a human hand, but there were billions of them. "What are they?" Governor Okafor asked. "We don't know exactly," Scareth admitted. "They are part machine, part something else. They consume everything in their path. Matter, energy, even light itself. They break down everything into base components and use it to make more of themselves. 300 years ago, they consumed the Keltharn sector. 40 inhabited worlds, trillions of beings, all gone in 10 years. The room went very quiet. The swarm moves slowly, Scareth continued. It takes decades to cross the space between sectors, but it is heading toward the core of the galaxy, where most civilizations live, including yours and mine. One of the officials from Earth, a man with white hair and too many medals, spoke up. "Why are you telling us this? Your empire has thousands of ships, advanced weapons. What could humanity possibly offer?" Scareth's eyes fixed on the screen. "Pride, that is what we have. Pride and power and the belief that we can solve any problem alone. That pride nearly killed me 15 years ago. I crashed on that frozen moon because I was flying alone into dangerous territory, refusing to take guards because I wanted to prove myself. I would have died if Marcus Webb had not helped me." "That still doesn't answer my question," the official said. "Then let me be clear," Scareth said, and his voice went hard. "My empire can fight the swarm. We have fought it before when it consumed the Keltharn sector. We slowed it down, stopped it from spreading. But we lost 1/3 of our fleet doing it, and the swarm is larger now, stronger. If we fight it alone again, we might stop it, but it will destroy my empire in the process." "So you want us to fight your war," the official said. "I want you to help save the galaxy," Scareth corrected. "The swarm will not stop with Draknir space. It will keep coming. Eventually, it will reach human territory. How long do you think your young civilization will last against something that destroyed species, who had mastered space travel for thousands of years?" Marcus had been quiet, but now he spoke. "Why come to me first? Why not go straight to Earth's government?" Scareth looked at him. "Because governments think in politics and power. I needed to make people understand that this is real, that I am serious. My entire fleet coming to find one human mechanic makes them listen. But more than that, I came to you because I wanted your advice." "My advice?" Marcus said. "I fix ships, exactly. You fix things that are broken. The galaxy is broken, Marcus. The species and empires that exist in it barely talk to each other. Everyone stays in their own territory, protects their own interests. The Council of Allied Worlds exists, but it is weak. No one wants to share power or work together. When the swarm comes, we will all fight separately and we will all die separately." Marcus understood then. "You need the galaxy to work together. Yes, and humans are good at that. Your species has been in space for barely 2 centuries, but you have made alliances with more species than any other young civilization. You trade with everyone. You adapt to other cultures. You find common ground. These are skills my people do not have. General Thane, the dark green dragon, made a sound of disgust. My prince, you ask too much of these primates. They are clever, yes, but they are weak. Their ships are toys. Their weapons are primitive. What can they truly contribute to a real war? They can contribute what we cannot, Scareth said. Flexibility. Innovation. The ability to see solutions that we miss because we are locked into old ways of thinking. This is madness, the general said. The noble families will never accept this. Giving honor and position to a species like this, the noble families will accept what I command, Scareth said, and there was steel in his voice. I am the crown prince. My word is law. But Marcus saw the concern in Scareth's eyes. The general wasn't the only one who thought this was a bad idea. There was politics happening here. Dragon politics that Marcus didn't understand. Governor Okafor leaned forward. Prince Scareth, even if we wanted to help, what could we actually do? Our military is small. Our technology is centuries behind yours. You misunderstand, Scareth said. I do not need human ships to fight. I need human diplomats to unite the galaxy. I need human engineers to look at our weapons and ships and find ways to improve them, ways we never considered. I need human strategists to develop tactics that are not bound by tradition. And I need Marcus Webb. Why me specifically? Marcus asked. Because you think differently. You looked at me, a dragon from an empire you knew nothing about, and you saw a problem to solve. You didn't see politics or danger or opportunity. You saw something broken and you fixed it. That is what we need now. Someone who can look at this impossible problem and find a way to fix it. Marcus sat back in his chair. People were staring at him, waiting for him to say something. The weight of it pressed down on him like gravity had suddenly increased. I'm just a mechanic, Marcus said quietly. Yes, Scareth agreed. And that is exactly what makes you valuable. Great leaders and warriors think about glory and legacy. Mechanics think about what works. The meeting went on for hours. The officials from Earth asked 1,000 questions. Scareth's officers provided data, tactical assessments, projections about when the swarm would arrive. It was overwhelming. Finally, as the sun started to set outside, Scareth asked everyone else to leave. Just him and Marcus alone in the conference room. You are afraid, Scareth observed. Wouldn't you be? Marcus asked. You're asking me to help save the galaxy. I fix fuel pumps. You save my life. That is a much harder problem than saving the galaxy. Is it, though? Scareth made that sound that might have been a laugh. Perhaps not. But Marcus, I must be honest with you. This will not be easy. Many of my people believe I am making a mistake by coming to humans. They see your species as inferior. If you help us, you will face resistance. You will be questioned. Some will work against you. Why would they do that? Because change is frightening even when necessary. Because pride makes people foolish. Because accepting help means admitting you are not strong enough alone. Marcus thought about that. He thought about his shop, his quiet life, the captains he helped and the mechanics he taught. He thought about the swarm, that dark cloud eating everything in its path. If I say no, Marcus asked, what happens? I will try to convince your government leaders another way. I will gather what allies I can. We will fight the swarm with what we have. Many will die. Maybe we will win. Maybe we won't. And if I say yes, then you give up your quiet life. You become a symbol. The human who saved a prince and then helped save the galaxy. You will be pulled into politics and war and things you never wanted. You will be asked to make impossible decisions. You will probably hate it. You're not a great salesman, Marcus said. I am being honest. You deserve that. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the alien warships in the sky, impossibly large and powerful. He could see New Avalon below, all those people going about their lives not knowing how close they were to disaster. He thought about Captain Chen, who couldn't afford to fix her ship. He thought about Tommy learning to be a mechanic. He thought about all the beings in the galaxy who were just trying to live their lives who had no idea what was coming. I'm not a hero, Marcus said. I know, Scareth replied. Heroes want glory. You just want to fix what's broken. That is why I need you. Marcus turned around. I have conditions. Name them. Humanity helps as equals, not servants. We contribute what we're good at and we're treated with respect. Agreed. I'm not a soldier or a politician. I'll help however I can, but I do it my way. Agreed. And when this is over, I want to go back to my shop and be left alone. Scareth's eyes gleamed. That I cannot promise. Once you save a galaxy, Marcus Webb, the galaxy does not forget. Marcus sighed. Yeah, I figured. He extended his hand. Scareth looked at it, then carefully wrapped one clawed hand around Marcus's. The dragon's hand was warm and strong enough to crush bones, but the grip was gentle. We have an agreement, Scareth said. I guess we do, Marcus replied. Now tell me everything about this swarm. If we're going to fix this problem, I need to understand how it works. Scareth's expression, alien as it was, looked almost like a smile. There is the Marcus Webb, I remember. Already thinking about solutions. That's what mechanics do, Marcus said. We fix things. Even impossible things. 6 months changed everything. Marcus stood in the command center of a Draknir warship called the Eternal Flame, staring at a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated where the swarm was now. Yellow markers showed where it would be in 5 years if nothing stopped it. There were a lot of yellow markers, and they covered territory where billions of beings lived. The Thravian delegation is still refusing to commit their fleet, said Ambassador Lee, one of Earth's diplomatic team. She looked exhausted. They all did. What's their excuse this time? Marcus asked. They say the swarm is too far from their space to be an immediate threat. They want to wait and see what happens. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. This had been the pattern for 6 months. Every species agreed the swarm was dangerous. Every species agreed something should be done. But nobody wanted to commit their resources until they saw everyone else commit first. Scareth entered the command center, his white scales gleaming under the ship's lights. 6 months of working together, and Marcus still wasn't used to how impressive the Dragon Prince was. The Granth have agreed, Scareth announced. They will contribute 20 ships and their mining expertise. That's good news, Ambassador Lee said. It is a start. But we need more. We need the Thravians. We need the Selena. We need at least 15 species working together or this plan will fail. Marcus looked at the hologram again, his mechanic's mind working through the problem. 6 months of meetings and planning had taught him a lot about galactic politics. Every species had their own interests, their own fears, their own reasons for not wanting to help. Getting them to work together was like trying to build an engine where every part was made by a different company, and none of them fit together. But that's what humans did, wasn't it? They adapted. They made things work even when they shouldn't. What if we show them something? Marcus said. Show them what? Scareth asked. The swarm is still years away. It's abstract to them. But we've been testing weapons and tactics, right? What if we demonstrate what we've learned? Prove that working together actually creates something better than working alone? Ambassador Lee nodded slowly. A live demonstration. Show the skeptical species that collaboration works. Exactly. But not just Draknir and human cooperation. We get the Granth involved. Anyone else who's committed. We show what happens when different strengths combine. Scareth's eyes gleamed. The proving, yes. In ancient times, warriors would demonstrate their strength before battle to inspire allies. We should do the same. Over the next month, Marcus found himself coordinating something he never imagined. They took a section of uninhabited space and set up a test range. They brought representatives from every species they were trying to recruit, and they showed them what humanity and the Draknir had been building together. The Draknir had powerful energy weapons but slow-firing cycles. Human engineers had redesigned the cooling systems using principles from human ship design, doubling the firing rate. They demonstrated this by having a Draknir ship equipped with the hybrid system destroy 3 times as many targets as a standard Draknir ship. The Draknir had strong shields, but they were inflexible. Humans suggested a modular system where shield strength could be redirected to different areas as needed. They showed how this made ships much harder to destroy. The Granth had armor that could withstand incredible damage, but it was heavy. Human metallurgists worked with Granth engineers to create a lighter alloy that was almost as strong. Ships could carry more weapons because the armor weighed less. But the real demonstration was the tactical exercise. Marcus had spent weeks working on this, studying how the swarm attacked, looking for patterns that others missed. The swarm didn't think like living creatures. It was more like a computer program following certain rules. It always tried to surround targets. It always went for the largest energy signatures first. It always split into smaller groups when facing concentrated fire. Marcus developed a strategy based on these patterns. Small, fast human ships would act as bait. drawing the swarm into specific positions. Dragnir warships would hit them with massive firepower from defensive positions. Granth vessels would provide mobile armor, protecting damaged ships while they retreated. They ran the simulation against drones programmed to act like the swarm. The strategy worked perfectly. The mixed fleet destroyed the simulated swarm with minimal losses. The watching delegations were impressed. But it was more than just the tactics. It was seeing humans, Dragnir, and Granth working together so smoothly. It was proof that cooperation wasn't just nice words, it created real advantages. After the demonstration, 12 more species agreed to join the alliance. It wasn't everyone, but it was enough. The real test came 3 years later. Marcus was 45 now, and he looked older than that. The stress of coordinating a galactic defense force had turned more of his hair gray, but his hands were still steady and his mind was still sharp. The swarm had arrived ahead of schedule, probably because it had consumed something that sped up its travel. It hit the border of Dragnir space in the Vorton sector, an area with 3 inhabited worlds and dozens of mining stations. Marcus was on the Eternal Flame when the call came in. The battle had begun. All ships to stations, Scareth commanded. His voice was calm, but Marcus could see the tension in his posture. This was it. Everything they had built, everything they had planned would be tested against the real thing. The fleet jumped into the Vorton sector. Marcus's first sight of the swarm made his stomach drop. The reports hadn't captured how terrifying it was. Billions of small machines moving in perfect coordination, creating a dark cloud that seemed to swallow the stars. Ships that entered the cloud were torn apart in seconds, broken down into components that the swarm absorbed. "Execute formation, Beta," Marcus said into the command channel. His voice was surprisingly steady. The human ships, small and fast, darted forward. They looked suicidal, rushing straight at the swarm. But they were projecting massive energy signatures, making themselves look like much larger targets. The swarm took the bait. It shifted, billions of machines turning to pursue the energy signatures. The human ships led them into a carefully prepared kill box. Dragnir warships opened fire from 3 sides. Energy beams cut through the swarm like knives, each shot destroying thousands of the machines. But the swarm adapted quickly, starting to spread out to avoid the concentrated fire. That's when the Granth ships moved in. Their heavy armor protected them as they pushed through the edges of the swarm, creating barriers that funneled the machines into tighter spaces where the Dragnir weapons could be more effective. Other species contributed too. The Thravians, who had finally agreed to join, used their sonic weapons to disrupt the swarm's coordination. The Selene, with their advanced sensors, tracked the swarm's movements and predicted where it would go next. The battle lasted for 18 hours. 18 hours of constant fighting, of ships being damaged and falling back, of tactics being adjusted on the fly. Marcus barely moved from his position, coordinating the fleet, solving problems as they emerged, finding ways to adapt to the swarm's countermeasures. They lost 37 ships. 4,000 beings died, but they won. The swarm in the Vorton sector was destroyed, its remains scattered and neutralized. More importantly, they had learned how to fight it. The battle data was shared across the entire alliance. Every species now knew what worked and what didn't. The war continued for another year. The swarm kept coming in waves, each one slightly different, forcing the alliance to keep adapting. But each battle they got better. Each fight they understood more. Marcus wasn't on the front lines for most of it. His job became coordination, strategy, and problem-solving. He worked with engineers from a dozen species, finding ways to improve weapons and ships. He worked with military leaders, helping them understand how to fight an enemy that didn't think like a living being. And slowly, impossibly, they pushed the swarm back. The final battle happened at the edge of the Keltharn sector, where the swarm had originated centuries ago. The Alliance had developed a weapon based on human quantum theory and Dragnir energy manipulation. It created a controlled collapse in space-time, like a black hole but temporary and directed. When they activated it at the center of the remaining swarm, it created a chain reaction. The swarm, which used quantum entanglement to coordinate its machines, couldn't handle the disruption. The entire thing collapsed in on itself, the machines tearing each other apart as their programming failed. The war was over. Marcus stood on New Avalon again outside his shop. It had been closed for 4 years, but Tommy had kept it maintained. The sign still said Webb's Repairs in plain letters. There was a ceremony happening downtown. Medals and speeches and important people saying important things. Marcus had been invited. He was supposed to receive some kind of honor from Earth's government and the Galactic Council. He'd sent his regrets. He had work to do. The shop bell rang. Marcus looked up from the fuel pump he was cleaning to see Scareth ducking through the door. The Dragon Prince had to fold his wings tight to.